Hey everyone, Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and this is the Roux Rundown. So I like to start with a hot pot and hot grease. But before I do that, let's turn on the fire. Really, I got the flame on high. I'm using some canola oil here, or vegetable oil, I should say. I'm just gonna let that grease get smoking hot before I move on to my next step, which is adding my flour. I like to start with a whisk when I'm adding my flour to make sure it's clump free, smooth, and at the thickness that I want, and then I'll switch over to a wooden spoon, also known as a roux paddle. Our oil is smoking, so right now I'm gonna turn the fire completely off, and I do this for a couple reasons. It's really hot oil, so I just wanna be extra careful when having an open flame around. Also, it gives me a little forgiveness because I'm starting my roux with hot oil, which is not traditional. It's kind of a cheat. This will save you, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of stirring a roux. So I'm gonna add my raw flour into this hot oil, but I'm gonna be very careful when I do it. You can see why the fry of that flour, when it hits that hot and it produces steam, add it in until I'm happy with smoothing out. Now once I get it all smooth and I feel like everything's broken down nice and incorporated, I'm going to switch from my whisk to my roux paddle. I'm going to actually go a little bit more flour. And you can see already I'm at a tan stage, a blonde stage. And this is good right here. So I'm gonna, couple more whisk. I'm gonna turn my heat back on to a medium low. And I'm gonna continue to stir this roux until it's at the color that I want. You know, if it's a blonde roux like this is good for a bechamel or a velouté style sauce where you're gonna add stock to this, kind of like a pot pie filler. If you would start with more of a white roux or, you know, slightly less brown than this, be kind of roux you want to use for a mac and cheese when you're making a bechamel and you're adding like milk to the roux. So this is a super versatile kind of stage here. It also has the most thickening power. And as you cook the roux, actually, I'm not sure. We might want to check the science on that. Somebody fact check me. That the longer you cook a roux, the darker it gets, the less thickening power it has. So this is certainly has its uses, especially when it comes to classic French cooking. In Cajun cuisine, yes, there's a few dishes that use this color roux, but really what we're looking at for most Cajun roux, for most Cajun dishes, is a super darker than peanut butter, almost like milk chocolate colored roux. And that's what we're gonna show today, all the steps up until that. So when I stir a roux, I basically start in the middle like so, and then I move myself to the outside of the pan, kind of getting around right there. So now just keep going from the inside to out. Sometimes I'll make a figure eight, depending on the style pot. If I'm using a Magnolite and an oval pot, the figure eight is the money move right there. But a circle pot, round pot like this, starting in the center and then cruising my way on the outside. This is a great opportunity to tap in your buddies, you know, the guys that are around you cooking, be like, hey, stir this roux for 15 minutes. And then you leave and you don't say anything. You just make them keep stirring the roux for the next 30, 45 minutes, an hour. That's really my move. The cat's out of the bag, the secret's out. Sorry guys, I've been planning it for years. All right, so what we have here is, you know, what's considered a brown roux, not quite a dark brown roux, but it's getting there. And, you know, this would be maybe shrimp stew, chicken stews, your stew stages. Not quite a gumbo roux, as they usually, Cajuns like to take it a little bit darker, but definitely a stew roux. Now, I don't particularly like a really dark Cajun roux. In fact, I would look at this roux and say, okay, you got about 20 more minutes till you make your chicken and sausage gumbo. And that's the color that I'm kind of looking at when it comes to a gumbo roux for myself, which is gonna be lighter than that really dark Cajun roux that traditionally is used for, say, a chicken and sausage gumbo. So you can tell it's darkened up quite a bit from the last time I was talking about this roux. It's still a stew roux in my opinion. Not quite dark enough for our gumbo, but definitely looking nice and kind of bronzy, brown bronzy, which is great for a lot of different, I mean, depending on where you live and who you are, you might make étouffées with this, and might make coubillons with this, might make fricassees with this, might even make your gumbos with this, especially if it's a seafood gumbo and you use a roux. But for the most part, good for stews. This is probably hitting a lot of different kind of Cajun dishes in terms of this style roux that you want. But if you're gonna make a classic Cajun gumbo, still need to go a little bit darker. That roux is starting to really pick up that beautiful brick red brown color now. Getting really close. I'm saying 10 more minutes and this would be a good gumbo roux. All right, so we're at the final stages of this roux. You know, again, you can take this even darker to make that black Cajun roux. This is where I like to start adding my onions and garlic and sausage, and then ongoing to the Trinity when I'm making gumbos, because I know that roux will darken with those onions as those things go into the pot. So this is where I kind of start my gumbo cooking past the roux. But certainly, again, this is a good roux for a number of different stews. It'll just become, you know, it'll be less thick at that point because you're darkening that roux quite a bit. It's also going to take on more nuttiness, more earthy flavors from that toasted flour, more typical of what you've have for a gumbo. So, but yeah, this is very simple. Started with that hot grease. I added the amount of flour and I whisked in until I got to that consistency. And once I turned that fire on, I never stopped stirring from the center on out and just kept going until I reached that desired color. So even with me starting, you know, with a little cheat with that hot oil, I'm still have been stirring for 45 minutes. So you can even go longer. Like I said, an hour to get to that darker roux. And if you're gonna start with cold oil, expect us to be standing around here for at least an hour to get to this color, maybe an hour and a half, which is why I do the hot oil method. So just remember, you can use that little cheat if you want, but be careful when adding that flour into that hot oil.